Welcome to Global Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina.
Um, so really, the opportunity to also celebrate, what is happening in the sector, because I think a lot of the times we can be caught up in, it's not enough. We want more. The problem, the things we need to fix, that we don't take a step back to also celebrate the wins that we've had over the years. So as much as we want to speak about those things that we're doing and all of that, it's also good to really celebrate the work that we've done, but also the remarkable people that are really doing that. So we thank you again for being here. So we'll go first to Natasha Urkow. I didn't ask Natasha how to pronounce the last name, so I imagine I butchered that name. My apologies. I should have asked you. Um, Natasha was born and raised in Edmonton. Natasha is a disabled activist, facilitator, writer, public speaker, performer, playwright, model, and theater artist. You may also recognize her from her work on Lacombe and L'Oreal's HAPTA HEPTA campaign for CBC's docuseries Push. So if you've not seen that, um, um, it's called Push, and yeah, Yuko. Okay, Natasha Yuko. Great. Thank you for that, Amanda. After experiencing a severe spinal cord injury as a quadriplegic, she went on to complete her MFA at the University of Regina and persevered to use her lived experience and knowledge to push inclusive barriers in society. Despite many challenges, she has written, devised, and facilitated inclusive productions for companies such as Listen to These, Community Arts organizations, CBC Saskatchewan, Globe Theatre Regina, and the University of Regina, and continues to be a strong advocate for persons with disabilities in the artist community. In addition to her artistic endeavors, Natasha also works as a research communication strategist for Goodwill Alberta and is a quad mom of two. With so much unique lived experience to offer, hearing her story will give you goose pumps. We're happy to have Natasha. And with that, I'll also quickly read M's bio and then I'll pass it to Natasha. So M. Ironstar is a multidisciplinary artist and the executive director of Saskatchewan Arts Alliance. Her work spans arts advocacy, governance, research, and community-driven cultural projects with a strong focus on equity, artist livelihoods, and sustainable cultural policy. M brings a background in printmaking and visual storytelling, um, alongside extensive experience in coalition building. Since 2021, she has led Saskatchewan Arts Alliance through strategic planning, sector research, and advocacy initiatives that center artist lived realities and strengthen the provincial arts sector. So, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Natasha Yuko, and then from there, Natasha will pass it on to M. So, over to you, Natasha, and thank you so much for being
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Taiwo. So I'm sitting in for Tracy Foster and talking about, I want to break down how creation as care is held and why that is important and that everyone understand and maybe even integrate it. So creation as care, it will not only serve those with specific needs, but it'll interrupt the inherent overwhelm and burnout for artists and sectorial workers. I will do my best to speak to organization versus individual perspective. I'm going to attempt to speak from both perspectives with clear specificity. Now, at Listen to This, we do a regular check-in exercise. I'm just going to go right in to speak to the hypothetical, what we do, rather than the specific projects. But this is something that is fundamental to our practice, the traffic light check-in. So we do an exercise, and it's fundamentally open access and how it allows us to feel safe in our space. In the traffic light check-in, we share what state we are currently in our bodies, in the moment. No explanation, no judgment, just listening. So by stating yellow, red, or green as we go around the room. Now, as you may imagine, green means go, go, go. This person is feeling energized, warm, and open. Red means even though you're present, you are spent potentially and may even be feeling triggered, so would appreciate space from your peers, but you're still here to participate. And yellow is beautifully between those two in the spectrum of our intricate emotions. So if we're working online, we'll put it in the chat. So feel free, everyone, if you would like to, put your colors in the chat. Today I'm feeling, I would say presently yellow. Presently yellow. Yeah. An example of integrating the traffic light exercise is so we can all be on the same page. Now, at Listen to This, there are 6 tenets of creation as care. Care in creation versus creation as care. Now, creation as care emphasizes the connection between the artists, artistic creation, and a deeper sense of caring for oneself, others, and the environment. It highlights how the act of creating can be used as a form of self-care or a way to improve or sustain health even. The way of working promotes positive social change and creates a more equitable sector. Now, creating is care. Breathe that in just for a second. Creating is care. If I'm making art, I am taking care of myself, simply. Whether it's making music, performing, writing, or what other form that you can find, it is caring for oneself. There are moments that I've had in my life where I don't even know the pain or the trauma that I've gone through or that I am experiencing currently, but I'm creating art that is processing the pain, taking it out of me and putting it in action or on paper. This was removing the pain from my body and beginning the healing process. I've been able to use this with method acting, writing, performing, autobiographical work. My art has been a trauma outlet, personally. The creation and creating was removing the tar from my heart and healing the wounds that would otherwise be left to rot. The role of trauma-informed practice is integral and massive to our work. A quick example activity would be to use one word that describes what it feels like to receive care. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Now, number 2, second tenet. Disability culture is creation as care, emerged from a form within the disability culture. It rose out of concern for the health and well-being of disabled people and the environment. Disability culture is understood as a process, not a statement, because of the uncertainty inherent in the human experience. Creation as care is based on the need, biological, physiological, and psychological need. Care is inherent in creation. Think mother and child. One is not cared for if one is not creating. And this is care. This care is often cared into many aspects within the arts sector. When care is provided, creativity and productivity increases. A sense of belonging is felt. The role of trauma-informed practices and adapted somatic breath and voice and movement work are instrumental in this work, in our process. No suppression, only movement. The somatic practice gets our bodies and our emotions moving beyond stasis. This is crucial to a positive mental and physical state, crucial to progress and positive change. Now, a next facet is time and time again a struggle. Fixed schedules and the implications of standardized and fixed time. It's an overt barrier to engaging in creation as care. Soft or malleable schedules are necessary to accommodate needs and to hold a care-centered space. Some people, neurotypical people perhaps, felt uncomfortable when the familiar container is gone. Embracing awkwardness and discomfort is essential if one wants to engage in open access or in intimate inclusion. It ties in, fixed schedule ties in to sustainability and burnout. The next tenet in creation is care. It's a very common experience in the art sector. How to live a balanced life while participating in the grind culture of performance can be difficult for most and even impossible for many. So what can we do to hold our health and well-being as a priority in the grind? I mean, speaking personally, trying to fit into the construct of rehearsals, theater schedules, time construct, holding your bladder so long that you've give yourself a kidney infection because there's not enough time to maybe use the bathroom if it takes you longer than some, not having enough to eat, being so stressed out that you're losing your hair. These are not self-care. This is burnout. Burnout is very common, very, very common. And what can we do to hold our health and well-being as central to our success, let alone sustainability? Fact is, creativity relies on the ease and the pleasure. Fun fact, a regulated nervous system is a system that can connect, learn, and respond with ease. Breathing is crucial. It's crucial. Connecting to your body through breath. 2 sips in, 1 long sip out. The role of adapted somatic breath and voice movement work. It feeds our time together. It makes us feel well. Now, holding space. Research and neuroscience has helped us to understand that how a space is held is more important than how and what is being offered or facilitated. Summarized, basically, when a person is feeling safe, work is nourishing, learning is more fluid, and mistakes are not taken too seriously. No shame spiraling, please. And number 6, process is messy. Accommodating needs can be chaotic. Theories are important to understand, but need to be actionable. Malleability means we are engaged in care-centered processes. The uncertainty can be frightening to some, but being open to shifts in plans and schedules can be frustrating but are necessary. So with that amalgamation of information, I sit here and I dare ask a few questions to ponder or think about. How or where do you practice care? How do you or could you practice care as creation? And is creation as care important or of interest for people who do not experience health or financial barriers to participation in the arts? Maybe we can discuss some of these questions after the presentation. Now, in conclusion, creation as care is a form that is interested in creating access and equity within the arts sector. Attitudinal barriers and financial barriers are a challenge to this moving forward. We are better together, and moving at the speed of trust and comfort is essential to integrating cultural shifts. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Natasha. Thank you. I'll pass it to Em.
Great, thank you. So I do have a little presentation that I'm just going to use to guide my chat here, but so I'll just get that going and then let's see here, share my screen. This one. Okay, and then how's that looking for everybody? Is that okay? Okay, awesome. So, just to build on and kind of continue from what Natasha was saying. So, the SAA and myself and our team have had the honor and privilege to have worked pretty closely with Listen to Dis over the last 3 years, I would say. And we've done some work, and I'll put a link to some of the work we've done in the chat when I'm done here. But I have, just all the props and all the flowers to the LTD team, and thank you to Natasha for coming to share what you did with us today, because I think, you know, even knowing some of these concepts, I just found myself like, it was so good to be reminded of what you're talking about as creation of care and taking care of ourselves. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure to work with LTD, and also to think about. I'm going to talk to you today about really like advocacy in a kind of like government relation style way, but it's also been a big learning that advocacy, that's not always what advocacy means. There's a lot of different shapes and form that can take, and that's a lot of the work that LTD is doing, and that if just myself personally as an artist and arts administrator have learned a lot, and about myself and my practice and my profession. So okay. So the SAA, who we are. So the Arts Alliance is a unique organization. We exist to ensure the existence and continued growth of the arts and cultural industries in Saskatchewan. We're a collective voice for artists, arts organizations, and arts workers. Our membership is primarily made up of arts organizations, and we estimate that we have a collective reach of about 8,000 individuals across the province. We collaborate closely with provincial government and arts funding agencies. We're the only Saskatchewan organization dedicated to supporting in-depth primary research on the provincial arts community. And we're nonpartisan, and we advocate for public and private support for arts and arts education. So I'm just going to take a few minutes today and run you through some of the recent work that we've done in the area of advocacy. And then, yeah, like Tyler said, maybe we can open it up for a conversation. So we have ongoing meetings and communication with the Minister of Parks, Culture and Sport, currently Minister Alana Ross, and the staff there at the ministry. We also maintain an active relationship with the opposition critic for Parks, Culture and Sport, who's currently Brent Blakely. And we're also in fairly regular contact with all the Saskatchewan arts and culture funders. And so I like to think of us as a bit of a translator, that we're really kind of keeping our eyes and ears and everything on the ground with what's happening in the arts in our province, and then being able to take what we're observing and kind of giving that back to the minister, the ministry, the funders, the folks who maybe aren't quite as on the ground as we are. So one of our most recent advocacy efforts was pre-budget. We were releasing a report called Perspectives on Sask Arts and Culture. This report we commissioned, and it was a province-wide public opinion survey conducted with 400 Saskatchewan residents. And so we had never really done anything like this before, and we decided that we were going to hold a press conference event to talk about the exciting findings that we found, and the support for arts and culture that we saw in our province. So we wanted to put credible public data into the conversation about arts and culture in Saskatchewan. And we also wanted to position the SAA as a steady, evidence-based voice for the sector heading into the provincial budget. Provincial budget is always a bit of a scary time, I think, for arts and culture. And I think with some of the discussion around that we were heading into a deficit, and some of the stuff that we were seeing in our colleagues across the country, Nova Scotia is facing devastating cuts to their arts sector. And so it was, really attempt to kind of be proactive rather than reactive. So in terms of messaging, we kept it focused on three things that were rooted in the report that we released. Firstly, that the public broadly values arts and culture across Saskatchewan communities. Second, that people understand the role government funding plays in supporting the arts sector. And thirdly, that affordability is a real barrier. So 81% of people surveyed reported that residents, they want to participate, but it's too expensive. And so, yeah, our little experiment in press conferences was quite successful. We got media coverage from most of the major outlets, and then again it was picked up on by some other online outlets and that sort of thing. And so we really found it was good. It really positioned us in a positive way heading into the budget. So I will say that budget results, it was status quo for our provincial arts funder, Sask Arts, which always feels a little bit difficult for me to celebrate status quo. We know that the need is so great for the arts in our province, but at the same time, we have to, not getting cut is also something that we have to take as a small win. So the other kind of, more relatively recent advocacy efforts that we undertook was in December of 2025. So this was with the Regina municipal budget for our city. In the budget deliberations, council had put forward several proposals, and one of them included the complete elimination of the community investment grant program, which is not only where the culture sector gets their funding at the municipal level, but also the entire nonprofit sector of our city. And so this was incredibly concerning, and we were able to, not just us, but in partnership with many different organizations, arts and culture, and more broadly in the nonprofit sector, were able to mobilize, come together, speak to council, talk about how important the community investment grant program was for our city. And again, in the end, the council did choose not to cut the CIGP, and they passed a motion to tie future increases to that grant program to inflation beginning in the next budget. So that's kind of an example of some of the work we've done in relation to the campaign with the community investment grant program. We also ran a public letter writing campaign through an online tool called New Mode. So that's a tool in our tool belts that we can access. So the public was able to, easily and basically easily access and write to their city councilors to speak up for the arts and for the CIGP. And so we've done that a number of times. Yeah, I'm gonna just skip over this. I kind of spoke about it already. We've got some pretty intense challenges when we're looking at provincial arts funding in our province. And I'm going to talk a little bit quickly about kind of some of the work that we're doing at a national level. So at the SAA, we are involved in a number of national forums. I'm on the steering committee of the Canadian Arts Coalition, which is an ad hoc group of organizations and arts leaders and workers from across the country who've come together to really function in a similar way that the Arts Alliance does provincially. The Canadian Arts Coalition has come together to be the collective voice for arts at a national level. So one of the things that we worked on kind of pre-federal budget, this past budget, Canada Council for the Arts was being faced with the same requirement for finding efficiencies and cutting their budgets by 15% that every other department was going to be facing. And that could have been quite devastating to the Canada Council. And so the Canadian Arts Coalition was able to mobilize and create, again, using Numode, that online letter writing tool, a national letter writing campaign to urge our elected officials to not to not subject Canada Council for the Arts to the cuts that were proposed. And the result was actually pretty heartening and probably one of the most exciting kind of wins for the arts that I've seen in my career so far in this work. Over 10,000 people wrote over 50,000 letters. And in the end, Canada Council was not subjected to the 15% departmental cuts that were just kind of going to be broad-based. And they actually ended up receiving an additional $6 million investment, so $2 million each year over the course of the next 3 years, which really, going into budget was almost unthinkable. So I will say quickly too that I'm actually just on the heels of coming back from Ottawa. I was lucky to go for a provincial and territorial meeting there just this past week, and then it again luckily coincided with the Canada Council AGM, and the Minister for Canadian Culture and Identity, Mark Miller, was in attendance. So there's really strong engagement happening right now at a federal level. And, he left us on a really positive tone after his remarks. He said, keep on fighting for what you're fighting for, and you may be pleasantly surprised. So it's feeling like it has some good momentum. Both Taiwo and I are also involved in an organization called Mass Culture. Mass Culture is dedicated to the research side of things in the arts at a national level for arts and culture. And then I'm involved with Culture Works Canada, which is formerly the Canadian Cultural Human Resources Council of Canada, and they are like looking after everything HR and compensation and policies around best practices and training for folks. So it's really great. We also, as the SAA, subscribe to Hill Strategies, statistics and insights on the arts, and we're part of kind of a more informal national arts service organization Slack group. Anyway, the national work has been pretty exciting, just given the kind of movement we're feeling. So plans for things that we have kind of in the docket right away. There's some follow-up that needs to happen with Regina City Council to ensure their commitment to the indexed increase to the CIGP in the fall. So that's on our radar. We need some increased coordination and alignment with our provincial arts funder, just to, make sure that we're all working towards the same goal in the same way and on the same page. We're looking at doing some increased coordination and work with the big 6 organizations in our province, which are Mackenzie Art Gallery, Ramey Modern, Persephone Theatre, Globe Theatre, Regina Symphony, Saskatoon Symphony. Those folks, we've got some movement at the provincial level around building some economic impact case studies. That's quite exciting. And then, yeah, just continuing the conversation with the other organizations and festival folks who make a lot of essential and exciting things happen in our communities. And then again, kind of following up on the cycle, we'll do some late summer fall pre-budget advocacy strategy. At the national level, continued participation in the Canadian Arts Coalition. Going to be promoting a new membership structure of the Canadian Arts Coalition. So folks who are members of the SAA will be able to access membership to the coalition at a reduced rate, which is really exciting. There's been some work done on that. So yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now, but basically we have a strengthened commitment to advocacy, and we have a vision for a vibrant and well-funded arts community in Saskatchewan, and that is at all levels. And we're really just, trying to do everything that we can to make that happen, and to be the collective voice for the arts and artists and arts workers in our province. And yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Well, thank you so much. Really, really remarkable work that you're doing, and really, I'm familiar with some of them, as many of them I'm not. But to see the level of that national impact that SA is making at the same time at the provincial level, it's really remarkable. So thank you for that leadership and really remarkable work. I want us to part of what I'm you talk about a lot about advocacy, and I'm really thinking of advocacy. I'm thinking of advocacy as an act of care itself, right? And of course, Natasha talked about creation as care. So, caregiving, caretaking, whether on the individual level, on a community level, but also on a sectorial level, sounds really critical. Really at the center of what both organizations are doing. So I wonder, my first question is, my first prompt to kind of think, to bring out both of them together, while, we invite participants to put, you can type in your question or you can raise your hand and all of that, is for both of you to kind of speak of particularly the initiative that has been bringing both of you together. And again, I know that many years ago, there was a pajama night. Yeah, I think it was a pajama night. And then at some point later on, we're trying to, there's also a framework or document that kind of offer, and I don't know where all of that is right now. So Gerard, I want to speak to those things, because I think that, again, we need organization like SAA to be able to offer the kind of support to galvanize and strengthen support for the sector. And I think listening to these, sees that, and both of you have been able to work together with that idea that we want to create access, equity in the sector, and like Natasha did say, doing that with that speed of trust, understanding the existing barriers that are there, in what ways that those initiatives are existing, or that can help us to really think of the idea of caregiving for the sector itself in a broader way, based on what both organizations are doing.
I can lead us off if that works.
Just go ahead.
Yeah, so I think for us, so I've got it lined up here. I will put a link to the Axis of Access document that we've worked together over the last, 3 years or so to develop. And I think, I went through the process recently of writing our major operational grant, and in that it was some, thinking about operationalizing the strategic plan that we've just created. And one of the things that came out of that writing for me was the idea of the work of the SAA, really and the advocacy that we're doing is, I've kind of likened it to, in some ways, to harm reduction. There's a lot of challenging things that are happening in our sector right now, particularly for arts workers. There's low and flatlined wages, and especially as everybody's cost of living continues to go up and up and up. So people are, doing these jobs with lower paychecks essentially for many, many, many years now. There's, like Natasha talked about too, there's huge levels of burnout and turnover in the cultural sector. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is, in our pursuit of increased funding, which we know is a long-term goal, and that goal is actually never going to go away. I think even if somebody in the meeting I was in not recently said, in Quebec, they succeeded, not so long ago in getting a pretty massive increase in funding. And then the next day, someone right again away is knocking on the door saying, okay, we still need increased funding. So I believe that as well, that need is never going to go away. But how can we, other in alternative ways other than increased funding, how can we look at improving practices, policies, shared resources, collaborations, new ideas, new models? How can that work? Things that we actually have control over. How can that work to improve conditions for our sector, even in the long goal of increased funding? So yeah, that's one way I'm thinking about it.
If I jump in, I
Yes,
guess
please.
financial barrier seems to just have always been there as artists in the arts, always. And when someone is committed to doing arts or working in the arts, that means that they've probably done a lot of volunteer work. A lot of work has gone unpaid, and they better be passionate about it, because that is what is going to draw you there, not the dollars. So yes, how do we get to a place where it can coincide, where passion can coincide with a sustained financial supported system, so it's not a barrier. So it's just always a big question mark. Can we get there? Is it even possible? Because I mean, like Em said, it's always, we're always fighting for more. There's always going to be a need. Not to say that we're not going to be satisfied ever, but right? But there's finding a balance is the goal, right? How can we still not just survive,
Correct.
and work?
That's right. Well, Natasha, I want to follow up on that, because you did identify, the financial barrier, which is critical in terms of taking care of the particular community that you are part of, that you work with. What what are other areas, pillars that an arts organization like SAA, uh, having those consideration will also help them in their advocacy as they think through caregiving, and creating support and access and equity beyond just financial, particularly for the community that you're part of and that you work with.
I really, to me, it comes down to um, a matter of existing. The arts is creating life for people, especially people identifying with disability. It's not just like, oh, good for you for getting out. It's like, no, these people may not have quality of life enough to keep living, to sometimes to go to that extreme, that the arts and the arts practice that we do, and not just us, that others do, it's literally um elongating people's lives and allowing the health so severely that it's keeping people alive. And I'm not, I don't think I'm exaggerating anyways. Um, yeah, it's, life and death. It's, as much as we cloak it, it really is a real topic, and it's everywhere. And that's how powerful and how strong art is, that it is on a regular basis. Feeding people. It's feeding people and saving lives every day, every minute we're creating.
Thank you. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I'll just kind of, one of the things that we learned through that recent press conference event that we did is that, we knew that we could come in and report some of the findings from the perspectives report and talk about it from like a really from a data kind of way. And then what we did also was we connected with people with lived experience in the arts, and we helped them and prepped them to be able to speak to the media. And Tracy was one from Listen to This was one of the folks that was willing, to be able to be a media contact and speak about her and the organization's experience in the sector. And so I think that that's where an interesting bridge kind of comes in, where we can take, okay, we have this information and we can talk about things in a really factual way. But I think the thing that really also changes hearts and minds is this intersection of people's stories and people's lived experience. And this is where, it's kind of where the two meet, I think, is maybe where the magic can happen in some ways. Yeah.
We hope.
Well, in the document, it's in the early days, and I can see that I think it's also reflected in the final version. We were talking about access as foundational, access as situational. I'm trying to remember the third one, access as action, right? So access is foundational, access is situational, and access is action, right? And those three things, those are the three pillars, because those three things need to align together as we think through the care that need to be given to the sector itself, first of all, but also the disability community. And Listen to This is, I believe, is the first and only disability-led art organization in Saskatchewan itself. So, I wonder at the national level, what are the things that are happening that might be useful for us to know in Saskatchewan, for Listening to This to know, but also beyond Listening to This? I know first, Tricia and I, we've always talked, we one or two times that we've spoken, talked about the fact that it has to go beyond just one person being the advocate, right? We have to make the advocacy. So it's not just Natasha just, being the advocate, or one or two persons in the organization, but it has to be shared abroad. It has to go beyond just one person. That has, it has to move, and many need to take that responsibility. And once that critical mass is able to take that responsibility, the workload goes off just one person, whether it's Tracy or it's Natasha and the group. So you want to speak to national initiatives that are happening that you think might be interesting for us, both for the disability organizations, but also for the sector generally. That we need to be mindful of as we think about creating new seasons or thinking about our strat plans and all of those things. Because again, SA is positioned to serve the entire sector, not just one community.
Yeah. I mean, I think I immediately go to some of the work that the Canada Council is doing. I think that they are in many ways leading by example. I think, nobody, and, it's going to be hard to get things perfect, but I think that they're, taking strides forward. And a lot of this, a lot of my knowledge about it comes from conversations that I've had with Tracy and other artists and things, like hearing what's happening at that level to support accessibility and to support organizations and disabled artists. And, they're doing things like building in accessibility funds that are on top of an additional to granting dollars to be able to enable accessibility at a number of different ways, whether that's assistance with grant writing. I think, to my understanding, it's fairly broad in how that can happen. So I think leading by example and investing in supports and putting their money where their mouth is, or putting their money where their mouth is in some ways, I think is really important. And again, like my experience with that is a little bit tertiary, so I don't know, like, I don't want to say that it's, yeah, like, but I think that from what I see that's happening. I think the other thing to keep in mind is, as organizations, as people are planning, administrators, what somebody recently told me, like, to like have when you're wanting to make strategic changes in your organization, if you're wanting to prioritize access and accessibility or equity, or, you know, reflect that in your budget, reflect that in the work that you're doing, and build it in from the get-go to that. So it's not, you're not then thinking of it as an add-on, as something that, as an afterthought that needs to be considered after. And I think if we all try to do that, and explain that, and write it into applications to say, we're maybe going to spend a little bit less over here this year, but that's because we're going to prioritize our commitment to access and equity and diversity and inclusion in where we're putting our limited dollars. I think that speaks volumes. So I don't know. Again, it's not necessarily like the most national view of things necessarily, but yeah.
Thanks for that. And I'm going to come to Natasha in a sec here. Any question? I'm checking the chat. There is no question. Please, if you have any question, please let us know. um, I'm really thinking in terms of how might organization help the work you do at, and I'm going to come to Natasha with this question also. Speaking of SAA from the perspective of its mandate across the various various aspect of the sector itself, in what ways might organizations and individuals help support the work of advocacy that you do? A lot of the time, you don't get that kind of question. It's the other way around, right? So I think this might be an opportunity to kind of say, how can we, if I'm in theater or I'm an artist, how can I, so that we can all have that collective strategic envisioning that can help strengthen and support whatever you're doing at that level, at that level, whether it's in the legislature or at the national level, and all of those advocacy pieces that you're doing.
Yeah, so I think first of all is get connected to us online. I would say ideally sign up for our e-newsletters through the SAA and through the Canadian Arts Coalition. That's probably the first and kind of easiest thing that you can do, because then you'll continue to be looped in with the work that's happening. Secondly, I think talk about the importance and value of arts from all the different kind of standpoints that exist. So, I think we can talk about the economic impact of the arts. We can talk about the social, and well-being benefits of the arts, and we can talk about how arts brings communities together. And the Arts Alliance, we are working on putting together some kind of easy to use resources so that people can, when you're introducing things and you're thanking your funders, maybe that's something that can kind of be brought into, and just helping people who are maybe our audience members or people we're connecting with who are outside of our normal circles, helping those folks see themselves reflected in the work we do. Because we know that as artists, as arts workers, as that sort of thing, we know that the arts touches our lives from the moment we open our eyes to the moment we go to sleep. We understand that, but there's a lot of people that don't, and that don't understand that the arts and culture are uniquely positioned to address all these different aspects of our lives and our society. And so just really, I think being an advocate in that way, and talking about and supporting the work we do, like when there's a call to action, when there's a call to write a letter or that sort of thing, like being able to kind of be actively involved in that moment, but also just maybe being versed in how to speak about the importance of what we do is I think a pretty easy way to kind of support the work.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it to Natasha here. And I know that the mandate of listening to this is very specific, as it should be. How might other organizations that are not necessarily having the same mandate like you within the province support the remarkable work that you're doing?
I mean, start off by follow us. We definitely have presentations that are banned that you can regularly attend. I say supporters, of course, funders that we thank our funders, becoming a funder. If you can't be, think about open access. How can you be implementing that into what you do in your everyday life? What are you organizing that you could think of that could utilize the idea of pay what you can when there's tickets
Mhm.
involved? What can you do just in your organizations or your everyday lives to make things more accessible for your community and for those around you? But definitely participating is key to your community, to what LTD has to offer. We are always ready, looking for supporters and participants and people to share with on a regular basis. But if you know if that's not accessible to you, it's implementing in your own life, in your own environment, in your own community. It's still a win for LTD.
Well, thank you so much, Natasha. This is beautiful because for me, I find first of all, the partnership between SAA and LTD really remarkable and refreshing. Of course, I've not done any national, survey to see such remarkable relationship and partnership. So I want to, again, really kudos to both organizations, and of course, Em and Tracy, and then all, and Natasha, and all of you at LTD. It's really really refreshing to see that. The second thing is then the powerful thing with this kind of partnership is the is the opportunity that it offers us, whether it's this kind of resources that M just shared, where it's talking about accessibility, that we can get language from there, and we can think about that from multiple perspectives as a way to, so that when we're forging partnership, we can think about that, in a more holistic and organic way. Um, uh, we run the art leadership training program, and we're in the fifth year, I believe, the fourth cohort now, fourth or fifth. I'm losing track of the cohorts now. And in this particular cohort, we were very deliberate because we received we part of the application, we received an application from an artist that was interested in being part of the program, but there are term accessibility needs. And then the group, we took a step back and said, we really want to support this. And we knew that, what that really meant. And of course, we went all out in and being able to do that. And I think that it is work like this that can continue to give us that holistic perspective as we continue to think about ways to advocate for the sector more broadly, as we think about galvanizing and strengthening support, as we speak to the power that be, from the political, the governance, but also to that we can actually turn every person to an advocate for the art. Because I think that's the goal, that ultimately that we can all of us, not just the artists that are advocating for themselves, or is the artist that would then go to the government. Well, it's like we're the one doing everything, but that if we see that in those terms that Emmy is talking about and Natasha is talking about, looking at all of this from this caregiving advocacy as the responsibility of all of us, and then all of us chiming in from multiple perspectives, there's a way that it adds a lot of not just only credibility, but it has the power of the critical mass to the work to the work of advocacy within the arts, of course, but beyond. So, Em and Natasha, there are no questions. Are there thoughts? Are there thoughts that you want to share again? I can see the links already, so maybe what we can do is that Tara, we can gather those links and send it out to those that are registered for this talk today. But before we bring our conversation to a close, Em and Natasha, any thoughts you want to share with us before we bring the talk to a close? Since there is no questions and folks are listening deeply, any last thoughts that you'd love to share with us today before we bring things to a close?
I mean, I'll just take the opportunity to say thank you, and thank you to Natasha. I know our worlds have intersected but never completely met, so it's been really nice to get to know you working through this chat. and share this with you. But also, urge everybody, go out to arts events in your communities, go out to anything that you can. That's, if I've been asked last thoughts lately, that's what I've been saying is, to whatever level you can, in whatever way you can, support arts in your local community. It helps support those organizations and artists and workers, and it'll make your life better too, and urge that for encourage your family, your friends to experience that. So yeah, thank you.
And ditto.
Natasha?
I'm like, it's an honor to meet you, Tara, and Taiwo. I'm so grateful to be here and lend a voice. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think with that, we want to bring this to a close. Thank you for taking the time to be here today, and thanks to Am and Natasha for for being our guest today. Once we're done, we're going to edit this. It will be uploaded, and folks can listen to it later. Well, thank you for all the work that you're doing, and thank you to your organizations and to your leadership, but also the work that all the arts Sask creatives are doing to sustain the ecosystem. With that, thank you so much, and then we look forward to seeing you again next month. Last Friday of February, of April. I'm taking us back of April 2026, where we're gonna have another two organizations in Saskatchewan speaking to us about their work and the remarkable things that they're doing. With that, thank you so much.
You have been listening to Global Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina. For more details about the center, visit www.cset.ca.